Senior Moments, sponsored by the Empowering Seniors Group on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Good morning. This is the Senior Moment Show. I am your host today, Sid Roeder. Bruce is not here this week. And today I have the joy to talk to a friend of mine, Chris Guyman. He's attorney at law with the Conflict Resolution Center here in Logan. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you here. Let me talk quickly about the sponsor of the show, which is the Empowering Seniors Group, a group of professionals that has dedicated their time and effort to provide information to seniors, their family members, and really anybody who cares. And if you'd like to learn more about the group, you can do so online at empoweringseniors.info, or you can email us at empoweringseniorscv@gmail.com, and the CV stands for Cache Valley. Or lastly, if you have any suggestions for this show, any guests you'd like to see us invite, you can call me personally at 435-512-6406. Well, let's dive a little bit into what you do, Chris, because I think it's very educational for our clients. I hope they get some good takeaways from this. Let's maybe talk a little bit about you first, who you are, why you do what you do.
Yeah. So like I said before, my name's Chris Guyman. I started the Conflict Resolution Center almost 7 years ago. When I first started working, all I was doing was estate planning. And I've had a passion for this for a while. Some of my family had some conflicts in their estate planning and wanted to help prevent that. As my business grew, we've grown into a lot of family law services as well. And I have another attorney working with me, Paul Gosnell, that handles most of those family law services now, which has allowed me to come back to the things I love, which is estate planning and mediation and just helping people either prevent or resolve disputes.
And maybe I could bite into that, because this is something that I personally find very appealing, is that you do mediation. And explain a little bit why you offer that service.
Yeah, so I'm not a big fan of the court system. As an attorney, I should probably be careful saying that. But I just find that often people can come up with solutions that are better for themselves than someone who's never met them can come up with. And so that's what mediation is we sit down together, we talk through the issues, and we hopefully come up with an agreement that everybody can at least be happy with, and at least better than what the court could come up with.
And also there's some savings in that, isn't there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Often a lot of the things we do can cost like 20% of what it would cost to hire an attorney to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's great. So I will make sure for our listeners, if you are interested or have any issues that you'd like to talk to Chris about, he's always good for a quick phone consult to see where you need to go. We will get his information out. So if you want to grab a pen and paper to be ready for that, that'd be great. Now let's get a little bit into some of the issues that are often very particular to when you're aging and you're preparing for all kinds of situations. I know, just talking to family members of my own, that there's often misunderstandings on what a will does versus an estate plan. So enlighten our listeners.
Yeah. So, everybody technically has an estate plan. If you don't have a will or a trust, then the government has already decided what's going to happen with your money. And it will go in equal shares to your children, and then up to, if you don't have any children, up to your parents, and then it trickles down to your siblings. And it's called like a per stirpes division of assets. The problem with that is that all goes through court. If you haven't determined that beforehand, then you have to go through what's called probate, and the court will go in and make sure that your assets are divided properly. What that often requires is assets being sold to ensure that each person gets their own share. We have to make sure we know what the things are worth. And so often the only way to do that is to sell it. And then once we have all the money, we divide it equally. So that's a very long process to do it that way. But it does happen, and almost half of Americans die without a will or a trust. And so that's what happens more often than not. The other option is obviously a will, which most people have heard of. And in that method, you can state who you want to get stuff. However, it still goes through probate. So it's still that same long, lengthy process. They're expensive. It's not uncommon for attorneys to make $10,000 to $20,000 helping assist in a probate action. One of the last probates I did was over $20,000 in combined attorney's fees on that case. And I figured that was about 10% of the total net worth of the estate. So it's really expensive, and it took about 2 years for the children to get the money from their parents. So 2 years that money was sitting in my trust account or being sold, and that's a really long time. So obviously I'm very biased and very in favor of trusts. So in a trust, you still get to pick who gets what, but as long as you put the assets in the trust before you pass away, then it avoids the probate action. In fact, we just did one this last week where someone hired us to do their probate. They paid us a $2,500 retainer, and after doing an analysis and everything, we were able to refund them $2,000 because literally every single asset had been put in the trust. So there was very little that had to be done. We didn't even have to open a probate action, and in total they spent $500 for a peace of mind is really what it was. But they didn't have to do it at all. So that's obviously my preferred method. There's some other advantages to trusts, especially if you have a home, any real property, so a home or land. When you pass away, if that's in a trust, then you can use the trust assets to continue to pay things like mortgages and utilities and that type of stuff. If it's not in a trust and there's not money in a trust to access, often those assets are frozen, like in the case I told you before. They had over $200,000 in a bank account and couldn't pay the mortgage. They had to have one of the kids pay the mortgage until it's sold and then be reimbursed for that. And that's, if you have a kid who can afford to pay their mortgage and yours, then maybe you can get away with it, but most people don't. And so having a trust ensures that you don't have to either fire sell that asset or that you lose it to a foreclosure.
Right. Maybe there's one quick question that just came to my mind that I wanted to ask about the will that you had mentioned before, because you said the government has a laid out system on who inherits what. So does a will always supersede that, or is it, because I know coming from Europe as a child, you can, in some countries, you can actually, no matter what the will of your parents says, you can go to court and ask for a mandatory inheritance part. How is that?
Yeah, generally speaking, as long as you create a will, then what's in your will supersede anything that's in the laws. If someone contests the will, then there can be times in which the court comes in and says, this person forgot that person or something, and so they can come in and give a person a share. Or if you give a reason in your will for why you're disinheriting someone and they can disprove the reason, then often they will get their share back. And so when I draft wills, I don't ever put reasons because I want to limit the conflict as much as possible. So as long as you're short, simple, and to the point, and you just say who gets what, that should be what happens.
Wonderful. We're already coming up on our first break here in a hurry. So let me give our listeners a chance to get your contact information, Chris.
Yeah, easiest way to find me is just the website, which is just www.crc, like Conflict Resolution Center, crc.law, L-A-W.
Okay, great. Again, let me remind everyone of our sponsor, which is the Empowering Seniors Group. And if you'd like to learn more about the Empowering Seniors, you can do so online at empoweringseniors.info, or you can email us at empoweringseniors.cv@gmail.com. The CV stands for Cache Valley. We're going to take a little break. Stay tuned.
This is Mark Thurston with White Pine Funeral Services. The best time to plan is when you have time to plan. Having a pre-arranged funeral gives peace of mind for everyone involved. White Pine will customize your final wishes to fit your needs, from a traditional burial to cremation to a custom headstone. White Pine also accepts pre-arranged plans from other mortuaries, and we will absorb any transfer or revocation fees. No penalty to you. Visit whitepinefunerals.com or come and see us for more information.
White Pine Funeral Services, here when you need us most.
It seems like yesterday I was playing with my kids on the playground.
Seems like yesterday I was building a treehouse in the backyard.
Time goes by too fast, but there is something you can do to ensure you're taken care of down the road. I'm Tracy Ferris with Quality First Insurance. A long-term care insurance policy is something we all need as we get older. If you wait until you need it, you're too late. Let me help you understand the options and benefits of long-term care insurance. Call me today, 435-752-0101.
This is Brian Erickson for the Sunshine Minute. Each day, our nurses, CNAs, cooks and servers, housekeepers, laundry staff, music, recreation therapy teams, office staff, receptionists, and many more arrive around the clock. These heroes show up ready and willing to serve and protect our residents and clients. We are so grateful to our dedicated team. On behalf of the Board of Sunshine Terrace Foundation and our community, thank you to all of our employees for keeping us safe. We bring more to life together.
Reed's Pharmacy in Hiram offers free delivery service 5 days a week, Monday through Friday throughout the valley. Just stay home and they will deliver to you. With 25 different suppliers, they won't have the shortage that others might have. Also, with compounding and many other services, they will be able to serve all your needs. In order to stay safe and help slow the spread, please call Reed's Pharmacy in Hiram at 245-DRUG and they will take care of you.
When it comes to successful aging, eating well matters. Staying physically active matters. Getting socially engaged matters. Living alone, aging alone, it's harder to consistently do that. Hi, this is Chris Grohl with Pioneer Valley Lodge, where we make it easier to do those things every day. Our mission at Pioneer Valley Lodge in North Logan is to help seniors live better, age more gracefully, and stay independent for as long as possible. Pioneer Valley Lodge, an independent living community for seniors.
And we're back. This is the Senior Moment Show. I'm your host, Sid Roeder, visiting today with Chris Guyman. He is the owner and attorney at law at the Conflict Resolution Center here in Logan. Welcome back, Chris.
Yeah, thank you.
We've talked a little bit about wills versus trusts, and maybe let's get into one of the presumption I hear from people is that a trust is so much more expensive than a will.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to estate planning. More often than not, drafting a trust-based plan should cost roughly the same amount as a will. There's plenty of places out there that you can get trust-based plans for roughly $1,000, maybe $1,500 that are still high quality and will be able to do everything you want to do. And a lot of the will-based plans, at least the good ones, are going to be right around $900 to $1,500. So you're going to cost roughly the same amount. One of the things people forget, though, is just that cost of probate. Like I said, probate can be 10 to 20 grand, and you're avoiding all of that. So not only is it going to cost roughly the same amount up front, but it's going to save you a significant amount on the back end.
Right, and don't you, I mean, wouldn't you say that, as you mentioned before, somebody could contest a will, all of that is taken away with a trust. It's crystal clear, whatever, mom wanted or dad wanted, if it's put in a trust, that's the way it's going to roll. Yeah,
generally speaking, that's the case. Normally when you draft a trust, you put a no contest provision in there. So if someone does contest the trust and loses, they lose their entire share. So that's usually enough to persuade people not to contest, which again saves people a lot of time and money on the back end.
Oh, wow. I wasn't aware of that one.
Yeah.
So maybe for someone who also has that on their to-do list with a trust for the longest time, what are some of the things I need to do to be prepared to sit down with you, or what kind of systems do you have for people to get started?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because I found a statistic one time that said the average person from the time they contact the estate planning attorney to the time they sign their estate plan is over 6 months. People just seem to not want to do it. And that's why so many people pass away without one. However, I've tried to make it just as simple as possible. And so how we do it at our office is we actually, when someone calls, we send them an intake form and they can fill that out. And they can just fill that out from home on their computer, or you can come into the office and fill it out if you don't like computers. But once that intake form is generated, we can create all of the documents, and then we send them to the client before they. Sorry, my voice. Sorry. Okay, we send them to the clients before we even meet with them, so they have a chance to see what's going on, and then we schedule a time for them to meet with the attorney and go through it. I found that to be a much better method of making sure people understand what's going on, because obviously there's a lot of documents and they have different names and all that kind of stuff, but if you've seen them once and then you sit down with the attorney, we can usually explain it right there. From there, we can then make sure there's not any changes that need to be made, and then we just schedule a time for them to meet with the attorney to sign the paperwork. So it's a pretty slick process. There's just an intake form, and then we meet to answer questions, and then we schedule a time to sign. We try to make it as easy as possible.
That's great. So back to the will. I mean, if somebody is interested in having a will instead, what is some of the preparation that needs to go into that?
I mean, it's going to be pretty much the same. The nice thing, if I go back to the trust, actually, as you say that, I usually create what we call like an empty vessel trust. So the trust is created, and then I give you instructions on how to put stuff in. And that way you can change it as you need without paying me to change it later. So if you want to put your house in it, great. And if you sell your house and buy another home, you SID. But then when you do that, put it in to the trust at the same time. Like you can do that without paying me to make a change every single time. Where with a will, you would actually have to go in there and change the address in the document and incur attorney's fees each time. And we can do that with all the different assets. Most people's assets are homes, which we just do through the title company. They're retirement accounts, which if you have a financial planner, that's the easiest way to do it. But if not, we just go in and change the death beneficiary to be your spouse first and then to the trust second. And 90% of most people's assets are those two things. So it's really simple and it's easy to change without paying me later.
So how about vehicles? I mean, stupid question, but do people put vehicles? Because that's, I mean, maybe a little quicker to turn around.
Yeah. Funny enough, vehicles are the one thing we don't put into the trust. Okay. You're significantly more likely to get sued if when you get in an accident, your title says trust. People think trust fund, they think you're a Kennedy, and you're more likely to get sued. So just for liability reasons, we leave the vehicles out. So you're safe there too.
So out of curiosity, what happens to the vehicles when someone passes and they're not in the trust?
Yeah, so as part of our estate plan, we do what's called an assignment of personal property. So all of your stuff, everything not attached to the ground, is already put into the trust. There's some debates on whether things that are titled are in the trust or not that way. But normally speaking, they'll still let that. If not, you do what's called a simple probate. For estates that are less than $50,000, you can do a simple probate. It's like 6 pages, and all it says is everything that I have goes to my trust. And so you just take those miscellaneous items that were left out, and it goes right to the trust. It's pretty simple. And I mean, I haven't done one in like 5 years. I tell people how to do it and say, if you need help, give me a call, and they never give me a call. So don't know a whole lot about it because I haven't done one in so long.
That's great. Well, it sounds you've convinced me that a trust is definitely the better route to take. Let's chat a little bit about some of the preparation that people do in regards to, oftentimes, as you said, you've mentioned they talk to their financial advisor, so there are things that are wise to do to have good communication between you and the financial advisor. How about banking issues? Yeah. One of the biggest mistakes people make with or without an estate plan is putting their children on their bank account. That allows your children to just take your money out. That's not preferred, but let's pretend that we trust your children and they're not going to do that. It still opens you up to liability though. It's like if your child got in a car accident, maybe not even their fault, but then they're sued and have to pay a judgment, everything in that bank account would be open to that. And so not only are you susceptible to theft, which happens a lot, especially with seniors, but you're open to liability there. So the number one thing is make sure not to put your kids on your bank account. We'll do powers of attorney, and we can talk about that in a little bit to handle that. And then with a bank account, we can go in and we can declare who's going to get that bank account after they pass away, and we can give that to the trust. So we should be protected there. Wonderful. We're on our second break, Chris, and you noticed that. So we're going to talk a little bit more maybe about the things you can do to protect yourself and your children with issues that have to do with banking. We're going to take our little break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
If you're retired or plan to retire soon, will you outlive your money or will your money outlive you? If you don't know the answer, I can help. Hi, I'm Patty Bartholomew, a financial consultant with Parsonex Securities. If you have questions about your financial plan or just need a second opinion, call me today at 435-227-5556.
Investments are not FDIC insured, nor are they deposits of or guaranteed by a bank or any other entity, so they may lose value. Investors should carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the funds. This and other important information is contained in each fund's prospectus and summary prospectus, which can be obtained from a financial professional and should be read carefully before investing. Securities offered through Parsonex Securities, Inc., member FINRA, SIPC, 8310 South Valley Highway, Suite 110, Inglewood, Colorado, 80112-303-662-8700.
Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad.
No problem, sweetie.
I can't believe you're able to fit everything in that little sedan.
Bye!
When they move out, you can move on to a house that fits your life. It's time to live in a space that fits your family.
Hi, this is Sid Roeder with Achievement Realty.
Let me help you to find a home that suits your needs and is less to take care of. Save money or even make money on the sale of your current home. Call me today at 512-6406, then list it, sell it, and move on.
Whether you have a small business, large corporation, or sole proprietorship, remember Cook Martin Polson has provided quality accounting services since 1977. At Cook Martin Polson, they believe you've earned it, and they're going to help you keep it. Take a minute right now to call 750-5566. That's 750-5566 to set up your tax appointment and let Cook Martin Polson show you how to keep the money you have earned.
This is Jared Ripplinger with Cook Martin Polson. You've worked hard for your money. Let us help you keep it.
Did you know that one of the greatest threats to our quality of life is a fall? 1/3 of Americans 65 and older, and 1/2 of those over 80 will fall this year. Many will never be the same again, and some will never return to their homes. This is Bruce at Comfort Care. One of the ways we can help people stay in their home is through our free in-home fall protection survey. Let us help you identify these fall risks. Call us at 754-7676. Comfort Care, 754-7676.
Welcome back. This is the Senior Moments Show. I'm your host, Sid Roeder, visiting today with Chris Guyman. He is the attorney at law and owner of the Conflict Resolution Center here in Logan. Welcome back, Chris.
Yeah, thank you.
When we led into our last break, we were talking a little bit about one of the things that a lot of seniors feel very safe about when they do it, and that is putting their kids on their bank accounts. And you had mentioned that for several reasons that isn't a good idea. So maybe we'll start off with that again and talk about some other ways to handle.
Yeah. So I know, especially as you get older and you need a little bit of extra help, it's so tempting to take and put one of your kids' names on your bank account, and that way they can write checks and do those kind of things for you. However, there's a lot of liability and risk to doing that. Personally, I see all the time where kids who are helping, they seem to use that money for their own benefit too. You know, they go to the store to buy your groceries, and next thing you know, they're buying theirs as well. And it starts off small and it becomes big. I've seen, $20,000 to $30,000 over a year taken from mom's account just from helping, and they felt totally justified on that. And that just scares me. So I get to play devil's advocate and say, don't do that, because your kids are going to do that. You get to believe in your children. That's your job. But I'm going to strongly encourage not to do that. It also opens you up to liability. Even if they don't take your money, if something were to happen and they get sued, then any asset that their name is on is subject to that litigation. And I've seen that happen as well, where mom's bank account and savings account has been drained to pay for a judgment that was entered against the child. So those are the big things. And we do that because, we know you're going to need help, and that's okay. We have things in place that allow for that help. One, if you have a trust, we do have an incapacity provision in there where your trustees can step in and help. But we also do what's called powers of attorney. And there's two main powers of attorney. One's for healthcare. You'll often hear that be called an advanced healthcare directive. And then there's another one for your stuff, and we just call that a general power of attorney. You can do specific ones too, but you don't usually need them. So when I do an estate plan, I do the healthcare power of attorney and the general power of attorney. So you designate someone who can help you when you need help. And a lot of these documents are called what's called springing powers of attorney. So they spring into place when you need the help, and then if you don't need the help, they leave. And so
maybe here's a quick question in between here, is who controls when they jump into action, and who is somebody accountable to?
Yeah, it's always going to be decided by a medical professional if we get to that point. And so sometimes it's obvious, like I've seen it where someone was in a car accident and was in a coma. That's easy. You can't make your decisions. And then 3 days later, they were out of the coma and it sprung back out of place. And then there's other times where it's dementia or Alzheimer's, something a little bit slower progressing. And that's when we'll work with the medical professionals to determine when is the time that they can't make decisions for themselves. The important thing with these is if you get them in place, like that's included in the price that we talked about, the $1,000 to $1,500 price tag. If you do them when you don't need them, then they're there when you need them. If you need them, you can't do them then, right? You can't sign and say, I need someone's going to help me when you're not capable of making that decision. If you get to that point and you haven't done one of these, then you have to do what's called a guardianship and conservatorship. And that's where you go to the court and have someone designated to be your assistant. Those are, again, expensive. Those are usually about $2,500 to $3,000 to set up. And then every year you have to do a reporting to the court. And so that's another $500 to $1,000 almost every year that has to be done. And all of that can be avoided if you just do the powers of attorney up front.
So I'm a little curious. Do people typically pick their children, or do you see them picking non-family members? What's the happenings there?
Yeah, I'd probably say 80-20. 80% of the time they're picking their children or a close family member. Then about 20% of the time they'll pick someone else that they know. Very rarely do you hire like a professional to be the trustee or the executor or the power of attorney. Usually we have to pay for those, and it's just not worth the cost to do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me see. We've talked about power of attorneys. We're coming up to the end of our show here pretty quickly. So is there anything in your mind that you'd maybe like to share with our listeners, or any story that's worth sharing?
Yeah. I think I'd just end with don't wait. It's so easy to put this off because it's not urgent until it's too late. And I see that so many times, and it's heartbreaking every time someone calls the office and they've gotten to that point. And sometimes we're able to get it done. I was able to get a trust done and some stuff signed just days before the loved one passed away, but more often than not, that's not the case. And so don't wait. We've made it simple. We've made it affordable. Just find a way of getting it done quickly.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for coming in. And one last chance to mention your digits here to our listeners.
Yeah, so again, the website's just www.crc.law. If you want to email us, it's just info@crc.law. And then our phone number is 435-248-2230. And we do free consultations, so if you ever have any questions, feel free to give us a call, and we'll schedule you to either talk to me or, like I said, my partner Paul, who's another attorney, and we'll make sure to take care of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris, for coming in and sharing all that information with us. Again, I'd like to mention our sponsor, which is the Empowering Seniors Group, a group of professionals that has dedicated their time and efforts to provide information to seniors, their family members, and really anybody who cares. If you'd like to learn more about the Empowering Seniors Group, you can do so online at empoweringseniors.info, or you can email us at empoweringseniorscv@gmail.com. We're at the end of our show. I hope you had a good time and learned something, and we'll have you listen again next week.